Find the limit of the trigonometric function. So for this one, and it seems we cannot do substitution first, because if you do substitution, and that's cosine 0, which is 1, tangent 0, which is 0, 0 theta goes to 0, that's 0. So that seems like we have a 0 divided by 0 form. Remember, when we have a 0 divided by 0 form, it does not mean we do not have a limit. Okay? And if you have a constant c divided by 0 form, say for example, if your numerator does not go to 0, your denominator goes to 0. So in this case, you don't have limit, no limit. Okay? But when we have a 0 divided by 0 form, when you do substitution there, you may have a limit. Why you may have limit? Because if that's remember, those things here approach 0. So they both approach 0, but does not mean they are equal to 0. So they are not equal to 0, not equal to 0. So if not equal to 0 means their ratio may exist. Their ratio may exist. So that's right then, when you have a 0 divided by 0 form, don't just say, oh, it does not exist. Okay? So now, this problem, we still based on this limit. Okay, sine x divided by x as x approaches 0 equal to 1. It's still based on this special limit. So let's take a look here. When you have a trig functions here, okay, so first you do substitution. You find that both numerator and denominator go to 0. So that's 0 divided by 0 form. So that means it may have a limit. I want to say it does not have limit. This case, if the numerator goes to a constant, not 0, denominator goes to 0, so then this case we know we don't have limit. But if we have 0 divided by 0 form, we may have limit. So based on this formula, so first what we try to do here, see how can I get a formula like this here. So I'm going to use trig identity. Okay, so here I have a cosine 8 theta. I just keep the cosine 8 theta. Tangent 8 theta, I can write this as sine 8 theta divided by cosine 8 theta. Okay, so now I have a cosine 8 theta, cosine 8 theta, because both goes to 1. So you can reduce this here. And then you reduce your new function after you simplify. So you got a sine 8 theta divided by theta. Remember this, you cannot factor out the 8. Don't try to factor out the 8 or factor out any constant from a trig function's argument. Don't try to factor out any coefficient out of the trig function's argument there. Okay, it doesn't matter sine, cosine, whatever the function. You cannot factor the argument on the coefficient out there. What we try to do here, because we want to use this limit, so in order to use this limit, basically this two argument, this x, this two must be same, must be same. So here, so like this case here, if this is 8 theta, if that's 8 theta, so I know that's limit going to be 1. Okay, if it's not, I can't say it. Okay, so in order to use this here, that means I can do the following. I can't factor out 8, but the denominator, actually I can multiply 8 to the denominator. When you multiply 8 to the denominator, you also need to multiply 8 to the numerator. So now, this thing here is same format as this. If you call 8 theta as x, so that means sine x divided by x. So theta approach 0 means x approaches 0. So which means is that's limit. So now what we have here, the 8 is constant. I can factor out the 8 constant, but that thing here, and we know it has limit. So which means I can take a limit and to the that's part. So now use that special limit because that's got exactly same format. Okay, same argument. When x go to 0, but if theta go to 0, means 8 theta also go to 0. So that's exactly like that form. So finally, I have 8 times 1, which is 8. Okay, so that's the end of this problem.